and welcome in this session on managing a classroom. I am Dr. Gaurav Singh from School of Education IGNOU, your course instructor for this course on SWAYAM. Today I am going to talk about the factors which influence when you try to manage a classroom, as well as the strategies which are required for managing a classroom. So dear teachers, let us discuss how you can manage effectively a classroom. There are many factors which influence the classroom management. The first one is effective instruction. The next is setting and implementing rules. The third one is managing interventions. The fourth one is feedback on appropriate behavior. And the fifth one is class environment. Let us discuss all these factors in little bit details. When I am talking about effective instructions, actually your instructions helps you a lot in managing your classroom. Effective classroom management is facilitated if the learners are actively and successfully engaged in instructional activities. So when you design your instruction, you need to design your instruction in such a way so that you provide a lot of opportunities to your learners by engaging them in the teaching learning process. You not only provide them the opportunity for engagement, but also a well planned instruction with appropriate pacing and guided practice helps a lot to a teacher in managing the classroom. When your instructions are effective, the attention of individual learners is there. You provide them effective and immediate feedback, and you also get feedback on your teaching learning process from the learners. So effective instructions basically help you a lot in managing your classroom effectively. But if there is some instructional weakness, your instructional design is poor, you are not managing your classroom effectively, it creates a disorder in the classroom and it makes your teaching much less effective. The second factor is setting and implementing the rules. For effective classroom management, every teacher sets certain rules, and not only sets but also implement them effectively. A teacher with clear-cut goals for instructions and a degree of commitment to achieve these goals can manage their instruction effectively than anyone else. So what you need to do? Why are you going to organize this instruction? What are the objectives or goals of the instruction? There should be clarity on it. And when you prepare any instruction, you prepare well. You show a degree of commitment and confidence while delivering it in your classroom. Because your degree of commitment to achieve the goals through your instruction basically affects the classroom management in your class. You should demonstrate the willingness and the ability to act when the rules are broken. If you have framed certain rules in your class, that for example, every learner will get the opportunity to ask the question, but all learners will not ask the questions at once. They will raise their hand and one by one you will give them opportunity. But think that you are giving opportunity to only 4 or 5 learners and not to all, even though many learners are raising their hands. Slowly they will stop raising their hands and only those learners will raise their hands whose questions you are taking regularly. They will lose their confidence. There will be some problem in the classroom management. But if you are asking the students to raise their hands and not to speak simultaneously, but they are speaking, it means your rule is being broken. So you must show the willingness and ability to act against such broken rules. So the process of setting and implementation rules has instructional value as well as management value. It reflects that how you have designed your instructions effectively, how you are delivering your instructions effectively by keeping each one of the class engaged, as well as it also reflects that how effectively you are managing your classroom. The rules should be introduced in the same manner in which any academic concept is introduced. So, you should not make certain rules which are beyond the academic limits. You make them integral part of your teaching learning, you make them the integral part of your design, and you introduce them in the same way as you are introducing any concept. The rationale for implementing these rules should be made clear, and process used to present the rules should promote both understanding of the rules and respect for the rules. Why it is important? Because if you have set a rule, you have explained it to your learners, but if your learners have not developed any understanding of these rules, they will not follow them. If they have understood it, but they do not have respect for these rules, you will face problem while implementing these rules. So, your learners need to know that what will occur if they choose not to follow the classroom rules and procedures. So, the mechanism which you are going to adopt if a learner is not following a rule should also be explained to the learners. The third factor is managing intervention. When you manage your classroom teaching learning, the process of monitoring of the learner's behavior and intervening whenever necessary is very important, because in classroom all the learners do not show the similar behavior because they are not same, their learning styles are not same, their level of understandings are not same. So, if they have diversity in their understanding, if they have diversity in their learning style, it is also evident that there will be diversity in their behavior. Are you able to monitor that behavior? Are you able to identify the place or the point where your interventions are required? Actually, the need of interventions can be reduced if the rules which you have framed are classified properly and instructional activities are appropriately implemented. This problem occurs only when you are not implementing your instructional activities the way you have designed them, or the rules to be followed in the classroom are not being discussed with the learners and they are being implemented from one side only. There can be some typical misbehaviors, like some students may be inattentive, there may be some mild form of verbal or physical aggression sometimes against the peers, or a few times against the teachers also. Sometimes learner fail to bring the books or complete the homework. So, you need not to avoid it. Sometimes what we do, okay, you have not brought a book for one day, you bring it tomorrow. So, you do not discuss many things, you do not try to focus on that because your focus is more on the completion of the syllabus. But if you will avoid these small misbehaviors, later on your learners may be encouraged to reflect higher degree of misbehavior. So, when you are managing intervention, you need to learn how to intervene in such typical misbehaviors. Your physical movement is very important in the classroom. If a teacher sitting on the table or standing on a blackboard for the whole class and not moving in the class, it gives an opportunity to divert from the behavior, divert from the acceptable behavior for many learners. So, if you are physically moving in the classroom, it creates opportunity for monitoring learners' behavior and managing your interventions. But remember that if you are giving a lot of interventions, it will not increase learners' learning, it will not increase their learning. Sometimes over interventions become counterproductive, especially when the interventions are likely to interrupt the flow of the lesson. Such interventions should be avoided. Now comes the feedback on appropriate behavior. It is also an important intervention and important factor which affects your classroom management. If you have expected something from your learners that they should learn it, they should deliver something, and if they have delivered, so such success in learning should be praised by the teacher. But when you are praising your learners, you need to be judicious also, that how much you need to praise, when you need to praise, when you not required to praise. You need to distribute the praise among the learners. You cannot praise 1 or 2 learners every time, and so other learners may felt discouraged. That can be avoided. So if you are not praising all the learners in your class, and if you are praising only the learners who are very active in the class, 1 or 2 selected learners, that sometimes you discourage rest of the class. So what you need to do? You need to link the praise with the performance of the learners. Next comes class environment. For any organization, for better management, the environment plays a very important role. There are many organizational factors like direction, feedback, communication, interpersonal relations between the teacher and learners, etc. These create a proper climate for learning. If learners do not want to learn in a chaotic environment, and the teacher who has to teach the class will have to work under strain. So to avoid that strain, you are expected to develop a conducive learning environment. Poorly managed class do not provide a pleasant, supportive environment to teach or learn. So for supportive environment to teach or learn, a good management, a good classroom management is required. A certain degree of calmness, quiet and comfort is necessary for the teachers as well as for the learners' mental health. So we need to create that degree of calmness, quiet and comfort in our classroom. Let us discuss few techniques which you can use to manage your classroom effectively. These techniques can be categorized into 4. One are behavioral modification techniques, then learner responsibility, then group activities, and then skills in maintaining learners' attention. Let us take each of these one by one. What are behavioral modification techniques? Actually, when you enter in your class, when you plan your instruction, it is your job to identify and decide that what should be a desirable classroom behavior and what should be undesirable classroom behavior. As a teacher, you need to ignore the inappropriate or undesirable behavior. You need to use the reinforcement to shape the desired behavior. You can use many popular activities to bring out desirable changes in the learner's behavior. So you should plan certain activities which are essential to bring desired behavior modifications. Learner's responsibility. It is an old practice in which it has been conceptualized that whatever will happen in the classroom during the teaching learning process is the sole responsibility of the teacher only. No, it is not. Nowadays, it is being believed that learners should be made responsible for their behavior. You just make them aware, you just make your learners aware that what are your expectations from them. If they show the desirable behavior, what will be the consequences, and if they are showing any undesirable behavior, what can be the consequences. So if you explain them the consequences of both the types of behavior, this brings self-discipline among the learners. You need to enable learners to take up more responsibility for their behavior, for their learning, and you need to develop a plan for modifying their unproductive behavior. You can manage your class better through open communication, through cooperation, and through cooperative attempts for solving any problem. Then you can organize certain group activities. You know, some teachers are there which prefer to deal with a group of learners rather than within the individual learner. So you can organize small group activities where learners learn to live together, learners compete with together, they cooperate with together, and when they work together, they exhibit desired behavior in order to gain the group rewards. Not only they compete with each other, if you are giving them some group activities and if you are creating a competitive learning environment, they learn from each other. You can encourage the desirable behavior among the learners by using appropriate rewards or reinforcement strategies. There are certain skills which are required to maintain learner attention. The one thing, a teacher should have the skill to monitor continuously the learners for sign of inattentiveness, and a teacher should be sensitive towards the need of the learners. You can arrange the seating arrangement in such a way so that you can see, you can monitor, you can visit to each and every learner without any much effort. You can use variation in your voice, you can use movement, you can use pacing. So, these are the techniques which can be used to refocus the attention of your learners towards learning during the teaching learning. You need to guard against the tendency for creating a monotonous environment in the classroom. For this, sometimes you can use humor also, because humor breaks the monotony and creates a lively environment. So, what you can do as an effective classroom manager? As an effective classroom manager, you describe the rules more completely and implement them more systematically. This was suggested by Everstone and Emmer. They also suggested that teachers monitor their learners' compliance with the rules more consistently and intervene to correct inappropriate behavior more often and describe desirable behavior more often when providing feedback. Teachers present information clearly. In effective classroom, they give directions, they state objectives, they break down complex tasks or concepts into small and easily manageable parts. Everstone and Emmer were also of the views that teachers are precise and clear when they present information and give direction to their learners. They waste little time in getting organized or accomplishing transition between the activities. They maximize learners' attention and task engagement during activities by maintaining appropriate lessons and using various approaches to manage instructions. There were other researchers like Korelski and Quaranata. Both of them propose that effective teachers provide a stimulative and appropriate learning environment which takes into account learners' personal interests and their learning styles. They use variety of instructional strategies in the classroom. They use novelty to break the monotony. They allow the learners to generate the needed guidelines for proper classroom conduct. Thus, they build the self-confidence and autonomy and increase learners' awareness of personal responsibility for one's action. They were also of the opinion that teachers develop guidelines that enable the learners to become responsible for their work. Teachers treat the learners with respect and kindness. They express the concern for their learners' welfare and provide them opportunity for success in the classroom. Whereas researchers like McNeil and Wills, they explained the role of an effective classroom manager as an effective classroom manager show a caring attitude towards the learners, listen the learners when they tell their concerns and viewpoints, use many first name as you can, try to be positive in your attitude and approach, and you cultivate a friendly but respectful relationship with the learners. An important thing is that know your learners properly. Without knowing learners, you cannot manage your classroom effectively. They were also of the view that a teacher should be time and start the class immediately, have something for the learners to do, have a lesson plan, inform the learners the way the lesson will progress, apply the rules consistently and vary the type of classroom activities, prepare assignments that are appropriate for your learners. So, dear teachers, with these tips with the factors which I have discussed with you and with the strategies which are being suggested by many researchers, you will be an effective classroom manager, and I am sure that you will facilitate the learning of your learners. Thank you very much.